It's proper to note that the minority was whitewashed in one way or the other during those 2 days of debate on the floor of the House. But we did see petitions and oral submissions that were disregarded, especially on some of those contentious clauses around the Finance Bill 2023. And there are those who feel that Parliament, in one way or the other, did not listen to the Kenyans' plea around those contentious issues. So from your analysis in terms of the debate on the floor of the House, were they, holding the views of Kenyans at the end of the day, or this was a must pass? This was ground zero, as he's mentioned?
Thank you. You say it whitewashed, and my friend has said, Mr. Kafafa says that it was such a nice debate. I mean, first and foremost, what debate? I mean, we all knew the bill would pass anyway, so the talks in Parliament, which were really one-sided, which were Kenya Kwanza sided, was really an internal debate. It was Kenya Kwanza and discussing what the government wants to do and debating whether it's correct in terms of are there any amendments we need to do. They brought in two, acted like they really had listened to the people and made those amendments. But if you had to, and this is a very important question, was there a quality debate? Quality debate means all the stages of budget making have been fulfilled, and then the public has been given opportunity to air their views. And those views are then taken care of during debate. The discussion should extend towards saying, what did we hear from the people? Not exactly what the kind of tax that is being proposed will do for the country, because that is more or less obvious. So if you ask me in terms of debate, really, if we are this chance, now it is becoming low, so we may not have that chance. A proper debate should have been held, and the people's views should have been properly consulted and, implemented in the floor of the House. To be honest, and it's important we, as professionals, stand firm and say, no, that did not happen. But if you ask me whether the tax levies, by governments in East Africa, in Kenya, and in the world should always be implemented, or rather, should we tax people? Should we not tax people? The truth of the matter is, if you want to be independent as a nation, you must contribute to the tax, kitty of any country. There is no question that a government should collect enough tax from people so that it can implement its policies. Yeah. There's a catch, however, and this is really where the argument is. You see, initially the argument was, should it be 5%, 3%, or now 1.5%? That is okay to argue. But to say that you are a shoemaker or you repair shoes, therefore you should not pay tax, and the big corporations should pay tax, that is really misplaced. Every single Kenyan should contribute towards the tax kitty so that we can have good roads, we can have services, we can have independence. As a country, we should be able to feed our own people. Yeah. That is not an issue. It is, in fact, every other professional believes that is the way to go. All right. Now, the catch is this tax? Historically, I don't care about what Kenya Kwanza will do, because we will come to that after 5 years. Historically, have governments been keen on utilizing the tax collected for services and infrastructure and benefiting the masses, the public, or they have been utilizing it through corrupt cartels and corrupt means? And that is, I think, what is really hurting people, that immediately Kenya Kwanza took office, the way they started, the way they said, what is your value, when the interview were coming in, and they said their value, and we saw that, okay, fine, this is their value. I think the cheapest one was 400 million. So, and then the way now immediately they started, were they assisting the hustlers, or they were actually assisting themselves? And I think that is now when people started to imagine that maybe this tax is really not going to be used for us. So we agree tax must be collected, okay. No doubt about it. Okay. Debate should be comprehensive. Everyone should be included. But this tax you collect, where are you going to use it? And I think this is an issue that still Kenyans are asking themselves. Will it really come back to us? Will we see better roads, clean cities? Will we see services? Will fuel go down? Will food be affordable? Will school fees be affordable? Those are the issues that people are really, even today, actually asking themselves. And we wanted them to come in the floor of the House, and they did not come out in the floor of the House in Parliament, yes.
Interesting. Dismas, your take in terms of perhaps what is raised, the accountability aspect, even as you add on your points around the taxation measures that we saw.
You know, there are two issues. There is the income and expenditure. So the first level to look at is income. Then expenditure, or now the resources are going to be used, is an entirely different ballgame. But let's look at, let's give it an helicopter view. This finance bill was characterized by three things. Number one, there was a lot of propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation. Majority of the people who are discussing this finance bill 2023, in fact, are not socialized with the document. At some stage, President Ruto hosted business leaders at Serena, and they came forward with a laundry list saying, Mr. President, we'd like you to do this. Then he makes reference to the finance bill. He says, for the people from the leather industry, this has already been taken care of. So all the issues they were raising, there are already incentives in the finance bill. So then one begins to wonder, if Kenya's business and corporate leaders have not socialized with the finance bill, how can they then participate in an informed conversation? So it was very embarrassing for them to tell President Ruto, we'd like this. Then he tells them, I've got good news for you. It's already captured here. We want this. I've got good news for you. It's already captured here. Then secondly, some members of the National Assembly, it seems to me again that not socialized with the document proper, because a number of them wouldn't even tell the difference between goods that are tax exempt or zero rated. So there was a lot of debate and nobody knew exactly what they were talking about. So then you begin to wonder, if these members of the National Assembly who are going to vote on this bill, they don't know the difference between tax exempt and zero rated, then what is the quality of conversation are they going to have? And then number three, in mature democracies, and Kenya aims to be in that space, like say in the UK or in the US, always the opposition or the minority will come with the alternative. But we didn't see that happening in Kenya. The Azimio, which is a minority, did not give us an alternative budget. They said that for them, the primary responsibility is to criticize, but they did not give us an option. And we see it happening in the UK, where you have the shadow minister coming up with alternative proposals. In the UK, where the minorities come with the proposals. So we expected them also to give us proposals. And then lastly, I think now Kenya Kwanza has managed to mainstream the economics conversation in Kenya. Everybody, starting from Mama Mboga, every Kenyan now has got a view about the finance bill, informed or otherwise. And you saw President Ruto going on national TV and explaining it for about 4 hours. One would have expected that Azimio would have done the same. That Mr. Raila Odinga would have called a journalist or a news conference and actually discuss those numbers into detail and break them. He did not. One would have expected that Martha Karua would do the same. She did not. One would have expected Kalonzo Musyoka to do that. Kalonzo Musyoka did not do that. Okay. So the debate was just left to Kenya Kwanza. Yeah, but I think in future, there may be need for capacity building for the key players, especially on the taxation terminologies. I think they can go to Strathmore University and get Professor James McPhee to give them basics. And really, you're smiling. This is a very serious issue that when Professor Njuguna tells them these goods are zero rated and these are tax exempt, and you're voting on a clause and you actually don't know what this is all about, it becomes a bit untidy. But all in all, as Leonard has indicated, the Kenya Kwanza has taken office after the Handshake brothers mismanaged the economy, so they're actually cleaning tables. And as a student of taxation, we are told there are two things you cannot avoid in life. You can't avoid tax, and you can't avoid death. So if you expect to be a beneficiary of public goods, public services, be prepared to pay your part of tax.
And what he raised, has that assurance been given that, at the end of the day, these taxes will go to the intended purposes with minimal wastage? Has this message been given by the current administration?
Yeah, absolutely. The 2010 Constitution gave us a lot of governance institutions, from the controller of budgets, from the Auditor General. There are several, I mean, the DPP, everybody. You've got those institutions that have got capacity to ensure that this coin goes for the intended purposes. And if you try to assault the resources placed in your hands, then you are going to pay for it. And again, you've seen, after he assumed office, when President Ruto was alerted to the fact that resources are being misused at KEMSA, he did not hesitate. And again, I've seen for the first time that the head of the public service, Mr. Koskei, in fact has been meeting with the relevant officers at the national government, and he's been reading the Riot Act almost on a daily basis. And Ruto himself said that when it comes to corruption, leave that to me, I'm going to take personal responsibility. So at the end of every financial year, then we'll be looking at the president and saying, you promised Kenyans you're going to take personal responsibility. If there's a coin which is going to be lost under your watch, then we'll ask the president.
Okay. I think that's, I just wanted to say that we should all agree where the buck stops. When you say that citizens do not understand the finance bill, the document itself, and in fact members of parliament largely did not understand what it is, where does the buck stop? I mean, you can say that everybody should go and read in their rooms and all that. It is the responsibility of those introducing amendments to ensure that they have done enough seminars, symposiums, so that they sensitize their members what the document talks about. And when you talk about public participation, it's not the duty of Mama Mboga to run to the government printers, take the document and read. It is the responsibility of the government and the National Assembly as well to ensure that this document is largely available, number one, and then they have trainers who go to the people and tell them, listen, the president means well, the government policy is this and this. So that, by the way, there are so many people you can convert to your side instead of linking people to social media and throwing them all over and saying, you really don't read, you don't like to read. This is not the issue. The issue is important policy of government should be explained to the masses in a language they understand. No need to be technical, so that they all know, okay. So that even the government can know that, oh, they have actually 2 million people who are not for this document. But to make it look technical and highly elitist is actually to miss the number of supporters that you would have gotten. So in my view, and that's why I'm saying the debate cannot be quality-based if you did not take this document in proper stages. Like Dismas has said, I agree entirely that a lot of comments are based on hearsay, what they see on Twitter and whatever, but it is the duty of the government. The buck stops with the president and parliament to ensure that the document is properly understood.
If I may weigh in, I think there was also a concerted effort on the part of the opposition to derail the debate on the finance bill. A lot of it, I mean, take for instance the tax, the 3% housing levy. That is one, and the turnover tax. That is another. So the opposition wants Mama Mboga and others who want to be brought into the tax bracket to believe that the government is out to punish them. Yet, as Nyaribo has rightly pointed out, taxation is the principle of every Kenyan. Every Kenyan ought to pay taxes, all and sundry, no, without exception. As long as you have an income, it is incumbent upon you to pay tax. So this turnover tax intends to bring in a lot more people into the tax bracket, because face it, we have about 70% or 70 to 80% thereabout of Kenyans who don't pay taxes at all. They are in the informal economy. They don't pay direct taxes. Then we have about 20% of Kenyans who have pay slip and who are then burdened with carrying the tax that the rest of us ought to carry. So when we attempt to bring Mama Mboga, as this Masole says, Mora and all these other people into the tax bracket, the opposition goes on a tangent and says, we are oppressing Mama Mboga. How do they expect the country to develop if it can't get revenues from the people, if it can't expand the tax bracket? This other one of the housing levy, we know that as a country we are doing badly. About 60 to 65% of our income now goes towards debt service. crowding out recurrent expenditure, crowding out money for development. This housing development levy, the fund as it was proposed, is a very innovative way of the government addressing the development issue that is not being funded because we are heavily in debt. Then when the opposition comes and criticizes and does not give an alternative, what do they expect? They are derailing, and they are derailing with the wrong message. Yeah, so
alternatives should be handed over by the
alternatives
opposition.
should be handed over by the opposition,
okay.
correct.
And Nyaribo, kindly clarify for us, because we expect the courts to be a little bit busy in this coming weeks. What exactly can be contested about the Finance Bill 2023, even as we await for President William Ruto to assent it into law? What exactly about the contentious clauses can we find heading towards the court for more clarification or other guidance here?
Yeah, and I think these matters are still before the court. Not sure if they have been decided. I think Omtata and several other people have filed applications and petitions. The main issue here was public participation implemented. Was it fully done? That's one. Two, these taxes you are levying on people, I mean, were people involved? Or you're simply, loading it over the people without their consultation? Because you don't have an absolute right in saying, I want 5% or 3%. Were the people involved? Such kind of things will actually be brought in the courts and several other issues. I just want to mention, before I leave that point, that the opposition is not very kind to Kenya Kwanza and government as a whole. That is the way it is. There is no other way in developed democracies that, and I'm sorry to say this, but you'll be told by priests and the pastors that there's always God and there's the devil. You will never ask the devil to do the thing that would actually make you go to heaven. And I'm sure it's an extreme kind of illustration. But I'm telling you, Kafafa, there is no way the opposition should see anything right about the government. Intellectually and for national unity and all that, once in a while the opposition can say, yeah, I think we like that policy, we may associate with it. But it is the duty of the opposition to actually keep the government all the time on check. Even where you have done right, they should, for the sake of it, just come up and say, no, you should not have done it like this, you should have done it like this. So that the government does not sleep, number one. So that government executives, technocrats do not steal. So that members of parliament associated with the State House are a little bit scared or fearful of simply going and wasting public resources. That's really the role of the opposition. So to expect that the opposition will come up and say, we like what the government is doing. I'm aware, that the opposition is very weakened now. A lot of members of parliament were already bought over to the other side. But even those remaining, you mentioned Karua, Kalonzo, Sifuna, all the ilk of all those who are now at least trying to speak against the government. Okay. They are not necessarily wrong, but they are supposed to check. And the president himself made it very clear. I will not work with you through handshake. You play your role as a robust opposition. Okay. So, and even if that is not really achieved or achievable out of the way they have been swept over to the other side, it is the duty of the opposition to at least, I know this one is itching.
Yes, I actually am.
And so am I.
They should be objective in their opposing government policies, but it is really their role. Okay. And in developed democracies, that is really honestly how the government can work better.
Interesting. So as Dismas, you come in, and let's evaluate what the opposition is doing about it. Because others might argue that the planned Kamkunji meeting is perhaps a little bit too late, that we should have seen a robust opposition